The stars outside the windows of the royal ship looked peaceful, like tiny diamonds floating in a black sea. But inside the ship, tension filled the air. Royal guards stood tall in silver armor, their weapons ready. Among them was Yalan, a young, human man wearing the same armor but feeling very different. He was not born into royalty. He had grown up on a dry colony planet, working with his hands, learning to fight with skill and heart. He was chosen to join the Zareli Royal Guard because of one simple reason: he never gave up. Now he stood near the Queen of Zarelians, watching everything with alert eyes. The Queen was unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her skin had a soft shimmer, like silver under moonlight, and her eyes glowed softly, calm but full of power. Her long hair floated gently as if it danced with the energy in the room. She wore a royal dress with golden threads, her presence quiet but impossible to ignore. She was beautiful, strong, and had ruled her people with fairness. But today she seemed worried. They were traveling to a distant star system for a peace agreement between two alien houses. The Queen had many enemies, and this visit was risky. Yalan had heard whispers of possible danger. He had learned to trust his instincts, and right now, they were screaming. As the Queen walked toward the meeting room, her guards followed closely. Yalan was positioned just 2 steps behind her, like always. He studied every shadow, every passing servant, every strange sound. Nothing escaped his eyes. Suddenly, something didn't feel right. The hallway ahead looked normal, but something in the air had changed. Then it happened, a flash of motion too fast. A tall figure in dark clothing appeared from behind a wall panel. In one hand, he held a hidden blade, and in the other, a smoke grenade. Yalan didn't think. He moved. "Get down!" he shouted, grabbing the Queen's arm and pulling her behind a support pillar. The smoke filled the hallway in seconds. Chaos erupted. Guards shouted. Blades clashed. The assassin charged forward, blade aimed at the Queen. Yalan stepped in between. The blade slashed across his shoulder, tearing through armor, but he didn't stop. He used his whole body to tackle the attacker, slamming him into the floor. The other guards rushed in. The assassin tried to fight back, but he was surrounded. Moments later, he was on the ground, restrained and disarmed. The smoke began to clear. Jalen stood up slowly, blood running from his arm. He winced but didn't complain. His eyes went straight to the Queen. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She stepped forward and looked at him with something more than just concern. It was something deeper. "I'm not hurt," she said softly. "Because of you?" He gave a small nod, then dropped to one knee, catching his breath. "You shouldn't have risked yourself," one of the other guards said. "Your job is to protect, not to throw your life away." But the Queen raised her hand. "He did exactly what a true protector does," she said firmly. The rest of the journey passed in silence. Yalan was taken to the medical wing, his shoulder cleaned and bandaged. He was ordered to rest, but he couldn't sleep. His mind kept going back to the Queen's face, that look in her eyes after he saved her. The next morning, he was called into the royal chamber. The room was large and bright, with tall blue crystals glowing softly around the edges. The Queen sat on a platform surrounded by her advisors and warriors. The court was full. Yalan bowed respectfully. "You summoned me, Your Majesty?" She stood up and walked toward him. Everyone stared. "You saved my life yesterday," she said. "Not only with strength, but with courage. You didn't hesitate." "It was my duty, Your Majesty," Yalan replied. "But I am not finished," she said. "According to the ancient laws of Zareli custom, when a queen's life is saved in direct attack, she has the right to choose her protector as her bonded mate." Yalan blinked. "Your Majesty, I don't understand." She turned to face the court and raised her voice. "I choose him," she announced. "This human Yalan, he is now my husband." The room fell into a shocked silence. One advisor stepped forward quickly. "Your Majesty, with respect, this cannot be allowed. He is human. He is a guard, not of noble blood." "The law does not speak of blood," the Queen replied. "It speaks of courage, honor, and sacrifice." Yalan didn't know what to say. His legs felt like stone. His heart beat faster than ever before. "This must be a misunderstanding," another noble said. Surely a Zyreli consort must be chosen from one of our own houses. The queen looked at Yalan again. Do you refuse me? She asked quietly. Yalan looked into her eyes. He saw no anger, no force, only calm strength and something else he couldn't name. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, he said. Honestly, but I won't run, the queen nodded. Then we begin. That night, Yalan was moved to a private wing of the royal ship. His armor was taken. He was given royal clothing, strange, soft robes with symbols he didn't understand. Servants treated him differently now. Some were friendly, others looked at him with cold eyes. He sat by the window, staring at the stars again. He had wanted to serve with honor. He had never dreamed of being part of royalty, let alone marrying a queen. The door opened, the queen entered quietly and sat across from him. She wasn't wearing her crown now. Her hair was loose, her voice soft. I know this is sudden, she said. It's more than sudden, Yalan replied with a small smile. I'm still trying to believe it's real. You don't need to become someone else, she said. Just be who you are. He nodded. Why did you really choose me? She looked at him seriously. Because you didn't save me for power. You didn't try to impress anyone. You did it because it was right. And that is what a true royal partner must be. He didn't know what to say, so he simply sat in silence beside her, outside the window. A new star system came into view. Inside, a human guard sat beside an alien queen, no longer just a protector, but now something more, something the galaxy would not forget. The news spread through the Empire like wildfire. The alien queen has chosen a human guard as her husband. Every noble house across the Zyreli system had heard by now, and they weren't pleased. Some called it madness. Others whispered it was part of a human trick. And many simply refused to accept it at all. But inside the queen's ship, the truth was clear. Yalan, the royal guard who had saved her life, was now officially the bonded mate of Queen Sera.Jal, and didn't feel like a royal husband. He still walked quietly through the ship's halls, still bowed to others by habit, and still felt strange wearing royal clothes instead of his armor. The Zyreli robes were long and soft, made of light fabric that shimmered like water. He had been given his own private chamber beside the queen's, but it didn't feel like home. He spent most of his time alone, trying to understand what his life had become. Then came the summons. Two Zyreli officials entered his room early in the morning. They wore tall silver helmets and held ceremonial staffs. You must attend the High Council chamber. One of them said politely but firmly, They have requested your presence. Am I in trouble? Yalan asked, sitting up from his bed. No, consort, the guard replied. They simply wish to understand. Yalan followed them through the royal ship. He had never been inside the High Council chamber before. The hallway leading to it was quiet, almost too quiet. Even the guards here seemed more serious. The doors opened with a low hum, revealing a circular room with tall pillars and glowing blue lines. Running along the floor, 12 council members sat in a half-circle. The queen stood at the center, her expression calm and proud. Yalan stepped forward, unsure what to say or do. One of the older counselors spoke first. You are Yolen, the human chosen by our queen. Do you know what this bond means in our culture? I've been told a little, Yalan said carefully. That saving the queen's life gave her the right to choose me. Correct, said another, her tone sharp. But that law is from a time long before humans were even known to us. It was made with our kind in mind, not yours. Yalan remained silent. He didn't want to argue, but he could feel the tension rising. The queen has made her choice, he said simply. And I won't disrespect it. A younger council member leaned forward. What do you want, human? Power? Wealth? A throne? Yalan shook his head. I didn't ask for any of this. I only did my job. I protected her. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Queen Seralia spoke. Enough, she said, her voice like a calm wave. The law does not speak of species or rank. It speaks of honor. He risked his life. I chose him. This is my right. The council did not argue further, but Yalan could still see doubt in their eyes. After the meeting, the queen walked beside him through the long hallway. They won't accept me, Yalin said. They will, she replied. Or they'll lose something more important than pride, the loyalty of their queen. That night, Yalin sat alone again in his room, thinking about the future. Just a few days ago, he had been a guard with no special title. Now he was in the middle of a royal storm. There was a knock at the door. It opened slowly, and a servant stepped in. She had soft green eyes and pale skin, like most Xyrillians. Your evening meal, consort, she said with a respectful bow. She placed a tray on the table, strange alien fruits, a glowing drink, and something that looked like roasted plant meat. Thank you, he replied. She hesitated. Forgive me for asking, but do you really care for the queen? Or is this just a duty? Yalin looked at her, surprised by the question. But he saw no anger in her face, just curiosity. I care for her, he said slowly. Maybe more than I understand. She's strong and kind, and she never treats me like I'm beneath her. The servant smiled slightly and nodded. Then perhaps there is hope. As the days passed, more people began to watch Yalin closely. Some were cold, others curious, and a few even friendly. The queen ordered special training for him, not in weapons, but in royal culture. A noble scholar named Tharek was assigned to teach him Xyrelli history, language, and diplomacy. You must learn quickly, Tharek said, walking beside Yalin in the palace garden. Because some will test you and others will try to use your ignorance against you. Yalin spent hours each day learning words, symbols, and traditions. It wasn't easy. He made mistakes. He got frustrated. But he kept going. One day, while walking through the garden, he heard a voice behind him. Still trying to play Prince Human? He turned to see a tall Xyrelli male with silver markings on his forehead. He was dressed in battle robes, and his tone was sharp. I don't want to play anything, Yalin replied calmly. I'm just trying to understand my place. Your place, the alien said, stepping closer, is far from the queen. The man walked away without another word. But Yalin understood the message. That night, the queen joined him in his private chamber. She had heard about the encounter. His name is Vorin, she explained, a warrior from one of the noble houses. He once hoped to be chosen. I don't want to fight him, Yalin said. You may not have to, she replied. But you will have to prove yourself, not just with words, but with actions, Yalin nodded. Then I'll do it. Not because I want power or title, but because I want to stand beside you? She smiled softly. Then I made the right choice. And for the first time since it all began, Yalin felt something inside him shift. Not fear, not confusion, but purpose. Days turned into weeks aboard the royal ship, and Yalin's life changed more than he had ever imagined. No longer a simple guard, he was now addressed as consort or royal husband by servants, advisors, and even high-ranking warriors. But behind those polite words, he could still feel the doubt in their eyes. The Xyrillians were a proud people. For thousands of years, they had lived under strict royal customs, believing only their kind could lead or rule. Yalin, a human from a colony world, was something they didn't expect, and many didn't want. Every morning, Yalin woke before the sun chimes and began training in the Queen's Hall, but it wasn't sword training anymore. He now studied alien politics, history, and behavior. He practiced formal bows, hand signals, and even speech tones that were required in noble ceremonies. If he tilted his head too far or used the wrong color in a robe, it could be seen as an insult in Xyrelli culture. His teacher, Thorek, was strict but fair. You must be more than polite, Thorek often said. You must be precise. The nobles are watching for your mistakes. Yalin worked hard, but it was never easy. He missed the feel of his old armor. He missed running drills with the other guards. But every time he wanted to quit, he remembered Queen Saralia's calm voice and determined eyes. One evening, as the stars glowed outside the crystal windows, Yalin sat in the garden, practicing ancient Xyrelli phrases. The soft hum of the ship surrounded him. A young guard approached him quietly. Consort Yalin, she said, bowing. Forgive me, but I thought you should know. There's talk in the lower chambers, whispers of a planned accident. Yalin stood up quickly. Accident? Yes, she said. Some of the nobles are angry. They think if you're gone, the queen will be forced to choose one of them. Jalen's jaw tightened. He thanked her and walked straight to the queen's chambers. Seralia listened carefully as he explained. They're desperate, she said softly. They fear change, and you are that change. Then let me leave, Yalen offered. Let me go back to being a guard. I don't want to bring danger to you. But the queen shook her head. You are my choice, she said firmly. If they strike at you, they strike at me. And I do not back down. She ordered increased security around Yalen. No one was allowed near him without permission. But Yalen wasn't content hiding behind guards. He started training again, not just court etiquette, but real combat. In secret, he worked with a trusted Zareli warrior named Renza, one of the few who respected him. She taught him alien fighting styles, how to read energy patterns in battle, and how to fight without using human strength alone. You have speed and instinct, Renza told him. But to survive here, you must learn to fight like a Zareli. Yalen trained with her daily, often returning to his chambers bruised and exhausted, but sharper, faster, and more aware. Meanwhile, the palace continued to whisper. Some nobles tried to ignore him. Others offered fake smiles. A few even tried to flatter him, pretending to accept him in hopes of gaining favor. But Yalen remained cautious. He trusted only a few and, above all, he trusted the queen. Then came the dinner ceremony. It was a grand event, one that took place only once a year. Noble houses gathered, dressed in their finest, to offer tribute and share blessings. It was also a test. Everyone in the room would be watching Yalen closely. He stood beside the queen as she greeted the nobles. His robe was dark blue, a color that symbolized patience in Zareli culture. He spoke only when needed, bowed at the right times, and smiled with quiet strength. But then, during the final toast, something strange happened. A servant handed Yalen a silver cup of ceremonial nectar. It shimmered slightly. Too slightly, Queen. Seralia's eyes narrowed. She leaned closer and whispered, Don't drink it. Yalen held the cup but didn't raise it. He noticed that one of the nobles, Vorin, the proud warrior who had once hoped to be chosen, was watching him too closely. Instead of drinking, Yalen spoke. With respect, I offer this honor to the queen instead, he said, handing the cup. Back to her. The room paused. Aurelia smiled gently, took the cup and poured it onto the floor. Let the stars judge, she said aloud. A blue flame rose from the spilled nectar, then turned black and hissed. Poison. Gasps filled the hall. The queen raised her hand. This is an attack on my consort, she said, and therefore an attack on the crown. Guards rushed forward, and the cup was taken for testing. Yalen stood tall, not as a victim but as a man who had passed another test. That night, the queen sat beside him in the quiet chamber. The stars outside seemed to shine brighter now. You handled yourself with grace, she said. They saw it. They won't forget. I still don't know if they'll ever accept me, Yalen admitted. They don't have to accept you yet, she replied. But they will learn to respect you. Yalen thought about that. Respect, he realized, had to be earned not with birth, but with actions, and he was just getting started. The palace was quiet after the poisoning attempt, but not peaceful. Behind the calm walls and polite greetings, the whispers had grown louder. Yalen could feel it in every hallway he walked. The nobles were not finished with him, but the queen remained firm. Seralia ordered an investigation, and the results were clear. The cup had been tampered with in the private chambers of House Vorin. The council voted to question them, but Vorin, the proud, noble warrior, denied everything. His family supported him, and no solid proof remained. Still, something had changed. Some nobles now watched Yalen not with disgust, but with caution. They had seen his calm during the ceremony, his loyalty, and his strength. But others still saw him as a threat to tradition. That's when the queen received the message. A group of noble houses had gathered together and sent a formal demand to her. Annul your bond with the human, or prepare to step down. It wasn't just a political warning. It was close to a declaration of rebellion. Seralia called a meeting with her closest advisors, and Yalen stood beside her. They threatened the crown itself, one advisor said. You must act fast. Let me go, Yalen said quietly. If I'm the reason this is happening, you are not. The queen cut him off. You are my choice. If I let them control that, I let them control everything. She stood up and turned to face the room. There will be no annulment, she said. There will be no stepping down. But there will be a response. The queen's decision shook the empire. Soon after, fleets from House Voron and their allies stopped, responding to royal messages. Patrol ships reported unusual movements near border worlds. Rumors of weapons being moved spread quickly. It was clear rebellion was forming, but instead of preparing for war immediately, Queen Seralia chose something unexpected. She called for an ancient trial of honor. It was a rare custom older than most laws in the empire. When royal blood was questioned, the chosen one royal consort or challenger could demand a public trial. Not with judges, but with skill, heart, and truth. Yalin was shocked when she told him. I'm to fight? He asked, eyes wide. Against who? The leader of the rebellion, she answered. Voron. But he's one of your strongest warriors. Everyone says so. Yes, she said calmly. And that is why this will mean something. I'm not a royal fighter, Yalin argued. I'm a human. I've only just begun to learn your ways. You have something he does not, she replied. Honor with no pride. Strength with no arrogance. That's why I trust you. Yalin stood in silence. He was afraid, but not of losing. He was afraid of what would happen if he didn't try. I'll do it, he said finally. The news spread like a starburst across the empire. The human consort had challenged Voron to the ancient trial. Many laughed. Others watched with interest. The nobles who doubted him believed this was his end. But some of the common citizens, the workers, the outer world farmers, even younger Zerelians began to cheer. Jalien trained harder than ever, Renza returned, as his combat teacher. They trained in open gardens, sparring rings, and inside empty cargo halls. She used wooden blades and energy staffs, forcing Yalin to learn quickly. You can't win with strength alone, Renza said. You must use timing, movement, and your mind. Every day Yalin pushed his body to the limit. His arms ached, his legs burned. But he never gave up. Meanwhile, Queen Seralia stood by his side. She never pressured him. She only reminded him, gently, why she chose him in the first place. You are more than what they see, she whispered one night. You are what they need to see. Finally, the day of the trial arrived. The trial arena was floating high above the capital planet, shaped like a circle with glowing rings of energy. Thousands watched from their homes. The court sat in tall seats, nobles dressed in their ceremonial colors. The queen sat at the highest platform, her face calm but her fingers tight. Yalin entered the ring first, dressed in traditional Zareli battle robes, light, breathable, and marked with her royal crest. Then Voron stepped in. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with cold eyes and silver war paint. His weapon was a double-bladed staff that hummed with energy. He looked at Yalin and smirked. Still time to bow out, human, he said. Jalien shook his head. Not today. A drum rang. The match began. Voron moved fast, striking like lightning. Yalin blocked one hit, then ducked another. He rolled, jumped back, then used a short blade to catch the staff mid-swing. The crowd gasped, but Voron was skilled. He twisted the weapon and knocked Yalin back. Yalin hit the floor but got up fast. He remembered Renza's training, don't chase. Let him come. Voron attacked again. This time, Yalin spun to the side, grabbed the back of Voron's arm, and threw him off balance. It worked? The crowd roared. They fought for nearly 10 minutes, every move testing strength, speed, and heart. Yalin took hits, but he never gave up. He used his smaller size to slip under, strike low, and wait for the right moment. Finally, that moment came. Voron raised his staff high, ready to bring it down. Jal stepped in, caught the motion, and locked the staff under his arm. With one sharp twist and a powerful kick to the back of Voron's leg, he sent the noble crashing to the floor. The arena went silent. Voron tried to rise, but Yalin placed the blade near his chest and paused. I don't want to hurt you, he said, but I won't let you hurt her. Voron stayed down. The crowd exploded with noise. Yalan stepped back, breathing hard. His body shaking, but he had won. Queen Seralia stood up slowly. In front of all the Empire, she said clearly. This human has proven his heart, his strength, and his honor. Let none question his place again. Yalan looked up at her, sweat dripping from his face, his hands shaking. And for the first time, he truly felt like something more than a guard. He had earned his place not because of the Queen's choice, but because of his own. The arena slowly fell silent as Yalan lowered his blade and stepped back. Voron, the proud noble warrior, remained on one knee, breathing heavily. His eyes, once filled with pride and fire, now showed something different. Defeat. But more than that, respect. Jalen didn't smile. He didn't cheer. He only breathed in deeply, sweat dripping from his brow, his muscles aching from the long and brutal duel. He had won, yes, but he hadn't fought for glory. He had fought for her, high above the arena. Queen Seralia stood in her royal seat, her face calm and proud. She raised her hand, and the arena responded with thunderous applause. Nobles, guards, and citizens watching from across the galaxy all knew what this meant. The human had proven himself, not just with words or status, but with strength, patience, and heart. Later that day, Yalan was escorted back to the royal ship. He was bruised, tired, and barely able to walk without help. But when the queen came to his chamber, he stood tall. "You shouldn't be standing," she said softly. "I'm all right," he replied, though his side still ached. "I told you I'd protect your name." She looked at him for a long moment, then stepped forward and took his hands. "No one can deny you now," she said. "You stood in the sacred circle. You faced our strongest warrior. And you won not just the trial, but the people." Yalan gave a small smile. "I didn't win them all. Not yet," Seralia replied with a gentle nod. "But they are listening now." In the following days, the empire changed. The noble houses who had once refused to speak. Yalan's name now sent messages of respect. Several planetary governors asked to meet with him. Even younger warriors from House Voron requested to train under him, hoping to learn his unique way of fighting. More surprising than all of that, the Zareli people, the workers, farmers, and outer colony citizens began showing support in waves. Songs were written about the human consort, poems and images shared across the stars. To them, Yalan had become a symbol that change was possible. That strength wasn't always about where you were born. Still, Yalan didn't let it go to his head. He remained humble, waking early, training, and learning. His studies in Zareli culture continued, and slowly he began to speak their language more fluently. One day, as he stood on the observation deck watching the twin moons rise over the capital world, Renza joined him. "You've done something rare," she said. Jalen turned. "Win a fight against Voron?" She shook her head. "Win the hearts of our people without being one of us." He smiled. "Maybe I'm one of you now," she nodded thoughtfully. "In the ways that matter." A few days later, the queen called a council gathering in the Crystal Hall, one of the largest and most sacred rooms in the royal palace. It was covered in tall, glowing crystal pillars, with silver vines etched into the floor, and a high platform where the queen spoke to her empire. Every noble house was invited, the hall filled with royals, warriors, scholars, and even media from distant systems. It was a historic day. Queen Seralia stood at the center of the stage, dressed in a royal white gown with flowing golden lines. Her crown shimmered in the light of the floating crystals. Beside her stood Yalan, now dressed in armor specially crafted for him. It was silver and blue, combining Zareli designs with human structure. On his chest was a marca star over a rising wing. "My people," the queen began, her voice steady and strong. "I stand before you not just as your ruler, but as your sister in this great empire. I have always sworn to protect our traditions and to grow with the future." She turned slightly and looked at Yalan. "I made a choice that many questioned. I chose a human brave, loyal, and honorable as my consort. Some said he was unworthy, others tried to remove him." The room remained quiet, listening. "But today," she continued, "he stands here not because I protected him, but because he stood for himself. He has earned his place, not just beside me, but beside all of you. Yalan stepped forward. I never thought I would be here, he said slowly, speaking both in standard and carefully chosen Zareli words. I came from a quiet colony. I never imagined becoming part of something so big, so powerful. He paused, then added, I may not have Zareli blood, but I have Zareli heart. The crowd murmured softly. Some clapped. Some even smiled. Queen Seralia then raised a silver crown symbol, but elegant, and placed it on Jalan's head. By the right of choice and the strength of his actions, she declared, I name Yalen as royal consort and co-ruler of the Zareli Empire. The hall erupted with applause. Lights from floating drones danced in the air. For the first time in Zareli history, a human stood as co-leader not by accident, not by force, but by honor. That night, the queen and Yalan walked through the royal garden. The stars above were bright, the air filled with soft music from energy, chimes floating through the air. You did it, she said quietly. We did it, he replied. Together. She looked up at him, her silver eyes gentle. Do you still feel like a guard? Yalan smiled. Always, just now. I guard something even greater, she laughed softly. And what's that? He looked around, then met her gaze. You? They stood under the starlight in silence, a queen who had risked everything to choose a human, a guard who had become more than anyone believed possible, and an empire that would never be the same again.